Hi, my name is Matt Fox. I'm the VP of Product and Engineering here at TopLeft. In this video, I'm going to explain how to make a Kanban board in TopLeft when you are doing software development. So this is sort of team that you're managing is software developers. What kind of Kanban board do you need in TopLeft? And we'll actually look at software development as a specific example, but this can actually apply to a variety of different specialized workflows. Other examples might be how do you run a finance department where you track procurement or quarterly business reviews could be a very specialized workflow. So what I have to say here mostly applies to those as well. But software development is probably the most common sort of specialized environment. So I'll use that as the example. So I'm not going to explain too much about the ins and outs of where do you click to set up certain things about a Kanban board. We have another video about that. But I will explain, why would you make certain choices for this particular Kanban board. So let's jump in. Okay, so you need to be an administrator to do this in TopLeft. Under the board menu, you'll see an option for adding a board here. So first choice is you got to decide what type of board to make. In ConnectWise, most likely you're going to choose the tickets. In Autotask, it depends. You'll see an option for tickets. That would be if you're storing your work in help desk tickets. You'll also see tasks. Choose that one if you're storing this work in the project module in Autotask. So since I'm using ConnectWise for this example, I'll just click tickets. On the general tab, I'll give this board a name. I'll just call it development. And generally, we can just use the defaults for all of these other choices here on the general tab, except maybe the swim lanes. Swim lanes, this determines how the tickets are grouped on that board. And so a good choice could be the resource. That would let you see the tickets all by who they're assigned to. And that's useful in almost any sort of environment. You want to see who's working on what and who's maybe working on has too much assigned to them right now. So the resource swim lane will show you that. However, there could be other types of swim lanes that you might want to use too. It really depends on how you're organizing your work in ConnectWise or in Autotask. Like for example, if you're using multiple boards in ConnectWise or multiple queues in Autotask, then you might want to choose the ConnectWise board or the Autotask queue as a swim lane, and then that would become very clear from the Kanban board, what work is in what board or what queue. So you might need to play around with that a little bit, but resource is almost always a good choice. And in fact, you don't have to choose between them. You can have multiple boards showing the same things, except with different swim lanes. That's totally fine. So we make those choices. Then under filters, we need to determine which tickets are do we want to show up here. So if it's ConnectWise, you probably just want to choose the ConnectWise board. I'll just choose the help desk as an example here. In Autotask, you might want to choose the queues, or if it's projects, you might want to choose the project type that applies there, or the category of the project. So you make your choices there. I usually try to keep that simple. And under columns is the interesting part. This is where we determine what's the life cycle of some of the work that we have here. Now, the good news about your specialized workflows like software development is that you probably know what is a life cycle. It starts out in a certain status, and then it goes to the next status, and so on and so forth until it's done. And whereas in kind of general help desk or project environments, sometimes there's actually some confusion about what is the workflow of that work. In software development and other specialized workflows, usually you've already got a pretty good handle on that. So uh, what you do is look through your list of statuses and see, where does the work start? And so you pick whatever is the first status, you'd pick that and put that in the first one. Most likely um, you just name it after name the column after the status. My statuses in this example aren't really applicable for software development, so there's kind of that doesn't match there. I would assume you would have statuses that actually reflect the actual stages in the workflow, but I'll just use some examples here. So maybe if it's the first stage is requirements gathering, and you'd map the right status to that. Then maybe your next one would be development. Actually got the developers working on it there, and then you put the right status there. Maybe the next one is user acceptance testing. And so you'd have a status you'd map there. Finally, you'd be tracking the release process and until finally it's done. Okay, so just make sure that you've got all of your statuses mapped there. And you can have more statuses than just, well, there's actually unlimited number of columns that you can have. I wouldn't, if it's possible, try to keep it maybe under 7 columns or so. That's kind of the most that can fit on a single screen for most people's monitors. Um, but you can do more than that as well if you don't mind scrolling a little bit. Okay, so I'll click save there, and we'll see what this board gives us. So yeah, we see our statuses, our columns across the top: requirements, development, UAT, release, and done. And we can see the work because I chose the member swim lane. I see the work as they're assigned to my different people. So I see tickets that aren't assigned to anybody. Then I see what's assigned to Terry, what's assigned to other example users here, and Joseph, and so on. So it makes it really easy to see who's assigned to more than other people's, who's assigned to less, and and if you want to answer the question, for a particular person, for example, for Terry, what are they assigned to right now? So uh, a pretty basic board there. You could make other boards from this one. It's possible to clone that. You just edit the board, and under actions, you click clone. You might do that if you've done the work of setting up your columns and you want to reuse the board. You reuse those columns on a different board that has a different swim lane. Would be a good reason to do that. Let me show you a couple of things that we can set up here where we can help identify certain problems with the work. So one example would be if work gets maybe work goes into development, but it has a tendency to just kind of get stalled there for a certain period. You would want to know when you'd want to have help identifying some of those tickets that have gotten stalled. So, like for example, here's a ticket that's been in development for a week. So we want to know about that sort of thing so that we can fix that. Also, another example is Joseph here has 17 tickets in the UAT in the UAT column, and that's way too many. Like everything is going to get delayed here, so we want to make sure that we reassign some of that work to other members of the team, if that's possible. But in any case, we want to be notified that this is a problem. So let me show you how you can set up highlighting for both of those problems. So that happens under the column editor here. So in order to highlight on the problem about a ticket staying in a certain column too long, we use the age warning field for that. So if I say I don't want tickets to be in the development column for more than 3 days, then under age warning, I put 3D, means 3 days. And that will highlight tickets that have been in there for longer than 3 days. So then suppose we don't want someone to have more than 4 tickets in progress at any time in the UAT column. So I can put in WIP max, that means work in progress maximum of 4 in this column here. Now by default, the 4 is going to apply to the board as a whole. It'll say for the board as a whole, we don't want more than 4 tickets in that column. That doesn't really make sense when we use the member swim lanes. So we can change how that behaves over in the swim lane setting. I can say that the work in progress limit applies to each swim lane as a whole. So I'll make that selection there and change how that behaves and click save. And then I can show you what this does. That means that anytime someone has fewer than the maximum, the 4 maximum that I put in here, they'll get a green background on their column here. So as an example, we know Joseph has too many. He has 17 in the UAT column here, and he gets a red background there to kind of just give us a notification that this is out of the ordinary and something that needs to be improved. Also notice that the ticket here that's been in development for a week gets a red alert on it to say this is longer than the 3-day threshold that was put in for this column. So this is another problem ticket. Focus on this, figure out what's going on there, get that fixed so that we can keep everything moving forward. So that is just one example of a simple specialized board, in particular for software development, that you can use to get a better visibility into your work.